Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Andrew with the Market Mindset. We're delighted to be able to catch John on Trudge Travels in Istanbul, Turkey right now. Thanks so much, John. I know it's very late / very early for you right now. I hope the trip was good so far out to Turkey. How are you doing otherwise?
Yeah, no, everything's good, Andrew. It's a long trip. I got a little bit delayed in Frankfurt, but here I am now in Istanbul. We're here one day early for the CRU Global Phosphates Conference, which is a once in a year event. It brings together, I guess you could call it the food phosphate and industrial phosphates industry elite from around the world. And we were fortunate enough to be invited to speak on the LFP battery. So that's what I'm here to do.
And what great timing too, because I mean, you guys have stormed out of the gates, and I know there's been a lot of work up to get to this point, but for people just kind of watching now, they see, okay, the company went public and then boom, news. And of course it's responded quite well. Maybe we'll go kind of without giving the whole history of the company, because it seems a bit overwhelming how fast this has happened. Let's just go over just the last couple of days from where you've listed and what's kind of gone on to get you to where you're in Istanbul now.
Yeah, so I mean, Andrew, we developed the company since about May of last year. That's first phosphate. We were diligently building some things behind the scenes, like we were locking up all the land claims around the port of Saguenay, all the phosphate bearing claims that have been known for the last 20, 25 years, what we found on our own, what we were able to buy from prospectors, what some mag trends told us. And so we took about 2 to 3 months to lock all that up securely. And then once we had that locked up, we went out for a round of financing in August. We had another round of financing in December. And so, it was a tough market, but, we managed to raise $7 million in total during that time period. We were oversubscribed, which was great. And we just went public 3 days ago on Wednesday on the Canadian Securities Exchange. We had some very good news out on Thursday. We signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid, the oldest producer of phosphoric acid, which is Prayon out of Belgium. And that allows us to basically accelerate our development, and it puts a strong partner behind us, which means we'll be able to meet the requirements of the LFP cathode active materials industry inside of North America, meaning we're going to break the pinch in phosphate or phosphoric acid, which is coming.
And I guess to take a big step back for a lot of people hear about lithium and they understand, okay, we need lithium. And they think, okay, well, is it cobalt or nickel? And then they hear the downside. Well, if it's cobalt, it's the DNC and there's kids mining there. This is difficult. Is there a solution? A lot of people, if they even know what phosphate is, they would know it from the fertilizer, and they go, oh, okay, well, I know we need phosphate for fertilizer, but how does this ring into what you guys are doing, and why is this so unique as well, from not only a standpoint of where you are because that plays a key role, but also why the grade and whatnot is so important to your project?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we got to step back a bit, like you said, and we have to understand that lithium is important to both battery chemistries, being the NMC battery chemistries, the nickel, manganese, and cobalt chemistries, but also important for the lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry. In general, lithium iron phosphate batteries will use about half the lithium that is used in the NMCs, even though that's variable across manufacturers and sort of secret recipes. And then sort of the phosphate is sort of kind of replaces the nickel, manganese, and cobalt that go into the other batteries. Now, are the two battery chemistries competitive, being NMC versus lithium? I think in a sense they are somewhat, but I think in the greater scheme of things, they're actually quite complementary. In that if you look at the statistics to 2030, it kind of has an even split where LFP batteries will be about 50% of the chemistries, and then the various NMC chemistries will be the other 50%. So I think, what's starting to shape up is, the LFP battery has its sort of its specialties, and the NMCs have theirs. Obviously, with the NMC, you get, a little bit more power, you get a little bit longer range, but the LFP batteries, you can't beat it on cost, and you can't beat it on fire safety. And it really is becoming sort of that, that middle class battery of mass adoption. Take the kids to school, go do your groceries, go to work. And charging stations are developing everywhere. So, you don't need those really long driving distances, the 1,000+ kilometer driving distances. And the LFP battery is fine for all of that. And it's got a good long life. And, the fire safety is really important. It's not going to make manufacturers end up on the front cover of a magazine or a newspaper because of a fire or something. So the manufacturers like it, they can put a warranty on it. And that's kind of what, if you look at the 1950s, that's what really got the automobile industry going, the family sedan, that good middle class use. So really the LFP battery sort of is good. It's going to support all of that mass adoption that then the NMC batteries can sort of leverage off of on top of as well, for what is, different uses, a little bit higher power, a little bit higher performance. So I think they're wonderfully complementary, both chemistries. And it's great to see that the manufacturers now in North America and even in Europe are starting to really turn to LFP, saying that, they had invested a lot in NMC, but now they're saying, we need to be invested in LFP as well. So, beautiful complementary action happening here between the two new batteries, in my opinion.
And what's so fantastic, because we've always been in the position we want to own the parts that make the parts, from my perspective, is that, if someone says, well, I want to get into the battery space, there's a lot of different configurations of batteries. People would go, well, how do I decide which one? And I think one way to make people feel a little bit more at ease would be, I think it was a week ago, the article that came out regarding Ford, and the CEO, Jim Farley, talked about the deal they have with CATL for lithium ion batteries. And they're looking to say, they're less expensive to produce, better pricing for customers, and wider profits for the automaker. So you see someone like Ford adopting it to build a plant. That's a huge, I guess, vote of confidence that, yes, it's not a technological development that we hope will adopt. They're already going ahead. That's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, that's a great vote of confidence that Ford realizes that, in order to get mass adoption going, in order to get price points where they need to be with the lithium iron phosphate battery. As that announcement has caused a little bit of polemic inside of the United States, because, unfortunately, to today's date, even though, the patent on LFP was originally created, just so in Quebec, in cooperation with the University of Texas, and in cooperation with the one of the national research institutes in France. But we sort of lost dominance to that. It all got built out in China for different reasons. And now, China basically dominates over 90 to 95, maybe even 99% of the LFP battery. So even though we need it in North America, we have, pretty much zero production of it. So what we're trying to do at First Phosphate is to create that sort of, upstream down to midstream sort of integration, where we can take phosphate out of the mine. We can process it together with iron sulfate, together with lithium, and we can create LFP cathode active material that then can go into cells, can go into packs, and then can go into batteries. So, Ford's deal is great because they're trying to get the technology to make the cells out of China. But still, the problem is, the LFP cathode active material will still come out of China. So it's, it's a quarter of a half of a solution that, is flawed, but, they're doing their best, because there really aren't too many solutions open to the manufacturers right now. This has really been a blind spot that we, as an industrialized, nation, or, a collection of nations in the Western world, we've dropped the ball on it, just to be frank. And now we're trying to get our productivity back, but it'll take years to develop that. But we at First Phosphate are committed to getting to that point as soon as possible. We're the bottoms up of this.
And if people thought it was challenging, to find any mineral or mining asset out there, or where they see like the lithium chases on out there, it's particularly difficult also to find like a clean, high grade phosphate, and that's what. Not only you've got this MOU, this is what makes First Phosphate exceptionally unique, is not only the geography because of infrastructure, pro-government, mining, and all of that, but because of the igneous rock. And I don't want to get too much into too much detail of this conversation, but maybe just tell people in a general kind of form is why that matters.
Yeah, okay. So Andrew, we'll try to keep it really basic. So in the world, there's two types of phosphate deposits in general. There's sedimentary, which covers about 95% of the world. That's kind of more brittle type of deposits, like old sea deposits that were dried out kind of thing, sands. And then there's igneous, which kind of happen inside of lava rock, if you will. And there's two forms of igneous. There's carbonatites and there's anorthosites. Anorthosites are 20% of igneous, meaning that anorthosites are only really 1% of the total known reserves of phosphate out there in the world. So they're extremely rare, but they're the purest. Carbonatites are already much purer than sedimentary rock, but anorthosites are even purer because they don't contain all the rare earth minerals that you might find inside of the carbonatites. Now, the sedimentary deposits, they're very good for making fertilizer, and that's generally where most of them stop. You can take a lot of that phosphate, take it out of the ground, beneficiate it, meaning concentrate it, and then you can turn it into purified phosphoric acid. And you do that by attacking it with sulfuric acid. So you get merchant grade phosphoric acid, which is phosphoric acid that is used to make fertilizer and it's used to feed animals. But then if you want to go to the next level, which is purified phosphoric acid, you've got to transform that MgA up even higher. And that's hard to do with sedimentary rock because it's got a lot of impurities. You can maybe scale up about 10% of sedimentary rock to purified phosphoric acid. However, the benefits of anorthosite, igneous anorthosite, like we have in Quebec and like First Phosphate has across all of its claims, 1,500 square kilometers of claims that are royalty free in Quebec. What we have is showings of igneous anorthosite rock, and if that igneous anorthosite rock is purified to MgA and then to purified phosphoric acid, you have about 80 to 90% of all of that phosphate, of beneficiated phosphate, that can end up in purified phosphoric acid, which means that we can concentrate fully on the LFP battery industry in North America. Whereas if you're in sedimentary rock, you're mostly a fertilizer producer. Whereas we're going to be almost 80, 90% a producer of battery grade purified phosphoric acid. So that is really a big key distinguishing factor. And also, Andrew, it allows us to have a mine size that's a lot smaller. In the sedimentary world, you need a mine size about 8 times as big to create that purified phosphoric acid, and then you'd have to have an outlet for all that MgA, that fertilizer, to put somewhere, and that's not always that easy. That's a very commoditized space, and it still is a lucrative one. There's some great companies in that space, but it's not as protected a niche as a purified phosphoric acid. And the purified phosphoric acid, all in the Western world, it's at capacity. There's never going to become more of it. Just to supply EV needs inside of North America by 2030, very, very, very conservatively, PPA is going to have to go up by 35 to 50%. Personally, I believe that'll be 100, 200% when you started adding in other uses. And I believe that all that you can produce will be uptaken. There's going to be a massive shortage of purified phosphoric acid, and that's what we're trying to resolve for here at First Phosphate.
And you've touched on a number of things too that kind of roll into why the importance of this MOU with Prayon is so critical, because you've got a very ambitious milestones timeline, but I mean, like you said, you've hit the floor running. So I mean, people are pretty impressed already so fast. This, as far as like hitting milestones and getting each types of beneficiated rock to up to specific grades, that's a very step-by-step process. This deal you have, or this partnership with MOU, that gives you guys a lot of flexibility, a lot more speed, and certainly a lot more agile in regards to different routes you want to take. And without getting into too much detail about how each step goes, because it is quite complex, maybe you can tell us why it's so important, some of the extra benefits of this partnership with Prayon is.
Yeah, so Prayon already is the largest supplier of purified phosphoric acid in food phosphates in Europe. They're amongst the largest in the world, if not the largest in the world. It's important because they have access to purified phosphoric acid. So, if we wanted to move and to develop an LFP cathode active material plant immediately before our mine is in production, we would have access to that purified phosphoric acid. That's number one, to begin earlier production of LFP cathode active material. Number two is once our mine is in production, right, and we put in the capex to mine the resource and beneficiate the rock, then we would have to put into place a purified phosphoric acid plant, and that's very high capex. So until we're ready to do that, or until there's enough substantial volumes to do that, we can toll process with Prayon, meaning we can send our beneficiated rock to Belgium. They process it, the purified phosphoric acid, to us, and then they will send it back to us. So that's a great partner to have. And, and then eventually, when we do want to build our own purified phosphoric acid, I mean, Prayon's got over 70 years of experience in PPA. And in fact, they're the ones who invented it in the Western world. So, through those three combinations of, being able to purchase already completed PPA, being able to toll process our beneficiated rock in the PPA, and being able also to have access to technology to make the PPA factory. And the other thing is there's also an offtake agreement where Prayon is interested in purchasing our beneficiated phosphate rock for their own factory there in Belgium. So I mean, it's a great way to get our volumes up. It's a great partner to have. It just makes things so much easier, and it makes the path so much more flexible, and it manages to allow us to control all the permutations and combinations of this, and to have flexibility.
And if you're like a Ford, or if you're a car company, and you know that it is a cheaper battery, and it's a little bit less power, but still it's going to be one of those tools in the tool belt moving forward as we kind of fight the climate issues that we're facing. Where are the pure play, like phosphate, high grade phosphate companies that they can go to? Have they kind of, I mean, I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but if they thought that through, was it just an assumption, oh, we can just go to Nutrien, I'm sure they've got lots of phosphate, we can purify it up and we'll be fine. Are there a lot of, pure play, high grade phosphate companies out there?
Yeah, so the problem is that there aren't any worldwide. And it's not really about phosphate, it's about purified phosphoric acid. And when you look at the Western world, there's really only 4 players that I know of that, are basically involved in purified phosphoric acid, that have the technology for it. They are ICL out of Israel, they are Prayon out of Belgium, Nutrien out of US, North Carolina, South Carolina, and then Innophos out of Mexico. So, you either got to work with one of those 4 players, or, you've got to invent all new technology, and that's pretty hard to do. And then, let's understand, it's not phosphate that goes into the battery. It's purified phosphoric acid.
Yes,
and battery grade at that. It's one step up from food grade. You've got to really take out all the metallics and the sulfur to, fanatical levels before it can go into the battery. So, it's not just any company that can do it. What's very different about phosphate, at least in North America, but really generally in the whole world, there aren't a lot of deposits that are mineable. It's a little bit heavier commodity. You got to be close to infrastructure. As we said before, the igneous rock is more important than the sedimentary, at least as regards to the battery. And it's just not plentiful. You don't find it. It's not like copper, nickel, gold. You can punch a hole anywhere in the Canadian Shield. You're going to find good traces of it. Even lithium, we've got quite a few deposits of lithium in North America, but phosphate, you just can't find it. And all the phosphate that is already in North America, the sedimentary rock that's held by the majors, is depleting. We have no more than 10 to 20 years of phosphate left in the Western world. If you go onto our deck, you'll see that I think it's been since 20 or 30 years. Phosphate rock in North America is depleting. There's less and less of it being mined every year, and also there's less and less phosphoric acid being produced in North America, be it MGA, fertilizer grade, or PPA, which is food grade. So there's no capacity to produce any more of it. And on the depleting mines that we already have in North America, even if we increase production, it doesn't mean that we would necessarily get much more PPA out of it, because like I said, you got to produce a lot of MGA to get a little bit of PPA, and the mine lives that are depleting inside of North America makes it such that the grades do not allow for that much purified phosphoric acid to be produced. Now that's all debatable. I'm sure people would debate me on that, but I believe generally that to be the case. So what we need, and most of this phosphate, it's all basically been destined to the fertilizer industry, right? And so that you need a new deposit. You need something like we have to supply the LFP battery industry inside of North America. You need good igneous stock. So that's what we're developing here at First Phosphate.
And also one of the key things, I mean, you're in Turkey right now. Not only you've got Prayon, which is a European company, you have to have your different hats on, let's just say all the time, Quebec is very mining friendly, but there's so much in a good way with our critical metal strategy from the federal government, looking to fund different projects, certainly the US looking up to Canada for certain projects. There's many hats that you have to have, not only with the province and whatnot. Your guys, tell me about Quebec, why that is important. Also, like where you are, why that is actually beneficial, just for the generalists, because they might say, well, I mean, if your deposit was in, Yukon, what would it be like? Or if it was in BC, would it be any easier? Quebec, I would argue, is a very, very positive place to have the rocks that you have.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there just isn't the deposits inside of North America, sedimentary or igneous. They just don't exist. And the odds of there being a new find anywhere is very difficult. So, where we are inside of Quebec, obviously mining friendly province, a great strategy by the Quebec government in terms of, electrification. They want to be the hub and the capital of it. What else can I say about that? Where we're sitting in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec, I believe we're very well invited by the local population. We're very happy to be there. We're working very hard to make sure that everything's right, and that we bring jobs, and we bring quality jobs, and we bring a clean development out there. So we're feeling quite happy about where we are in the Saguenay region of Quebec, and we truly do believe that the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region of Quebec can develop into the LFP battery valley for all of North America. We believe that we could start off with a couple thousand jobs, and we could easily get that up to much higher quantities, depending on how far the government wants to take it. What do we want to do? Because the competitive advantage is there. The beneficiated phosphate is there. Also, when you create LFP cathode active material, you need great amounts of hydroelectricity. Obviously, it has to be clean because it's the battery industry. You need a carbon footprint around that. You can't beat that. We've got the space at the port of Saguenay. Finding space at a port in the industrial world is very difficult nowadays. It's all being developed. The Quebec government has just committed to $115 or $117 million to developing the port further over the next couple of years. So we have that going for us. And we've got rail from there all the way down to the heart of the manufacturing industry, the auto manufacturers, because there's Alcan, now called Rio Tinto in that area. So there's communications where the aluminum is being sent right down to the manufacturing sector of the auto industry in North America. So, it's well connected. There's a great workforce. There's a great people. There's a beautiful city out there, very pristine, numerous cities out there. So there's places for people to live and to really enjoy it. It's a great area of the world as well to live it. You're right in the middle of the outdoors. So it's got a lot of elements that would make this very, very feasible.
One of the things that I like whenever I talk to any company is whenever they set themselves up to be vertically integrated. And this is something I've heard you speak about before, because it puts things into time perspective for me as well. We look at a lot of mining companies, and you have to have a bit of patience with them. Although people will look at how fast you guys have moved and say, well, that's pretty quick. Myself, I look at projects for like years down the road. And whenever I know a company wants to be completely vertically integrated, I know that this is going to be a business. This isn't about just finding a property or finding a result and selling it and moving on. That's what I think is in part so attractive. Not only do you hit the narrative on every other part, as far as the critical need, the demand, the governments on both US and Canada on side, the vertical integration part, I think, is really key for people, because even if they get excited with how the stock, say, has moved, I don't usually like talking about stock, we put on our hats and go, this is a long-term look at what they're trying to do here to get through this whole scale. And it's a journey, but it's a very profitable one.
Yeah. So Andrew, I'm glad to hear you say that. But I think it's important that what you said is, we're here to build a business. Stock prices can move as they need to, but we're going out this with a focus that we want to build a business, and that's why if you look at what we've been doing since about June of this year. I mean, if you look in our news section, you're going to see one quality press release almost per week, every second week. Meaningful events. Like we're out here to drive this. We know that we have to build as quickly as humanly possible because the battery industry is, is coming, and you want to be ready for it. But yes, we are here to build the next major industry, to hit the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region of Quebec. We see this as being, the Battery Valley of Quebec. We see ourselves being no different than, somebody like a Nutrien or a Mosaic that they own a mine, and they take phosphate out of the mine. Obviously, they mix it with, nitrogen, ammonium, potassium, whatever else they need to, but eventually they sell you a bag of fertilizer. Well, we want to take from the mine the phosphate, and we want to sell a bag of LFP cathode active material. So we feel that integration strategy has worked wonderfully well for these larger conglomerates in the fertilizer industry. And we don't see why we couldn't apply that to what we're doing here inside of a very small niche, and do the exact same thing, vertically integrate, provide a full solution that takes in, the upstream all the way to the midstream, and basically puts it on the platter of somebody like, a Ford that is looking to, develop their battery cells and battery packs, right? So that, we have that full North American solution. So you look at us, you're looking at the bottoms up, and then you're looking at the gigafactory guys and the auto manufacturers like the tops down. So we're kind of meeting them halfway. So look, this is first phosphate in what we call the ESG driven LFP battery ecosystem for North America. So, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pillars of it, starting from, taking phosphate material out of the mine and then ending up with a battery, with a car, and then eventually, recycling, obviously. So if you look at the blue area, that's the blue for first phosphate. That's where we want to be. Okay. And once we're done doing that, then we're going to pass it over to the battery guys, who pass it over to the car makers, and then who eventually will recycle it. So what we're looking to do is, we're going to extract phosphate from the ground at about 5 to 10%. And then at the same mine site, we beneficiate that, meaning we concentrate it up to about what's called 40 to 41% apatite, apatite being the mineral in which phosphate is found. The theoretical maximum ultimate purity would be 42% phosphate. So we get pretty damn close at 40 to 41%. To give you a frame of reference, the standard typical, Moroccan rock phosphate, which is sort of the dominant one on the international market, that's usually beneficiated up to around 30%. So, we're much higher. We have, less trace elements, and we are able to create, a large amount of purified phosphoric acid from a much smaller mining stock, which is great. We don't need a huge mine. We don't need massive capex. So we choose a smaller mine. We choose to be close to infrastructure, and we choose to be value-added players, right? As opposed to selling a bunch of beneficiated rock phosphate on the open market without adding value. We would rather have less of it, purified up to purified phosphoric acid, get the purified phosphoric acid, like we were saying, through our relationship with Crayon, doing the purification either at the port of Saguenay or in Belgium, and then taking that purified phosphoric acid. You blend it kind of with iron sulfate, and with lithium hydroxide, and then you get to LFP cathode active material. Once you get to there, that's kind of really the holy grail. That's where the really big value add has been created. There's a big value add jump from beneficiation to purified phosphoric acid, but then there's a massive value jump from purified phosphoric acid to LFP cathode active material. And then that LFP cathode active material then goes into the battery cells, the battery packs, and the EVs. When we're talking about, the Ford and CATL deal, that's kind of sits somewhere, around in here, right? Battery cells, battery packs kind of in here, right? But it still doesn't take into account the LFP cathode active material, right? And then you've got, some other great players out there like Nano One and some other companies in North America that are really looking to build, technology around creating LFP cathode active material. There's a traditional methodology out there, the Chinese methodology, also known as the solid state methodology. But, some of the more forward-looking companies such as Nano Ones and others are looking to develop, a more hydrothermal method where you can control inputs and we can get a, much higher quality, right? So that's kind of, where we would be at. We're sort of right here, then we kind of stop here, and then it gets passed on. And it, once it's in LFP cathode active material, it's no longer in liquid state. You've kind of solved a very hard part, and then basically it can be delivered anywhere into North America where they're assembling these batteries and eventually these cars.
I think most people are seeing, along with this, so many changes happening. It's going to be important how someone got their minerals, their elements, their mine, where it came from, how it was made, maybe possibly have an ESG score, but all of these things are going to be critical moving forward, whether it's a carbon score or whatnot, that having it in a good, safe jurisdiction that has a good reputation, but also has followed very strong ESG guidelines, that's going to be a very big positive.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you bring that up, Andrew, because that's really the question of the day. So, what happens here is, ethical supply is a big issue, right? So you want to know that it came from a place that, ethically is sound. Then the other thing is that you want to make sure it's on the ESG scale. So that's what we're doing. It's all ESG. Carbon footprint, we're controlling the carbon footprint in all our processes. Then the other thing you want to make sure that, it's traceable. You want to make sure that it's constant and secure. Now, constant and secure are big words. What does that mean? When we've heard about, auto manufacturing in the past, we've all heard of a phrase called just in time. Now, what is just in time? It was invented, in Japan, I believe in the 1970s, 1980s. And what that means is that, the auto manufacturers don't carry too much inventory and all their supplies arrive at the factory just in time, kind of all at the same time. And they go into the vehicle and, it's really a logistical feat to get your whole system up to that level of production, of performance. So when we do this here with First Phosphate, that's what we want to run. We want to be able to plug right into the manufacturing processes of the auto manufacturers, right into the just-in-time systems. Now, in order to do that, do you think you can be a fertilizer company that specializes 90% in fertilizer and is just doing this 10% LFP thing on the side just to make a couple bucks? Yeah, you can do it. And I don't mean to put anybody down, but, our focus here at First Phosphate is really, the technology client down here, downstream. We're focused 100% on them, whatever they need, however they need it. If they ever need a tweak to the way the material is done, if they need to, for us to look at something. And, the other big word is homologation, right? There's a massive process before they can start using this in the batteries. And we want to work on all those processes so where they can say, you know what, this is stamped, this is secure. We use First Phosphate because we know it's the right thing. So that's where we're going with it, a real specialized focus on the downstream clients.
And listen, I'll keep talking your ears off because there's going to be more questions down the line, but maybe we can focus on short term. So people that are excited and have more questions, what are a couple of the short-term metrics they could kind of hold you to? Because I always find that's a great kind of way to keep a scorecard to say, is management doing what they're saying they're going to do? What are some things in the next shorter term that people should kind of look for to see if you guys are on track? Well,
as you know, we have numerous phosphate showings and claims in areas inside the Lac-Saint-Jean, Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec. There's about 12 to 14 areas. So you're going to see our main area, which is the Lac L'Orignal, where we have a 43-101 already with 49 million tons in the ground. We're going to be moving that into PEA here very shortly. Also, we're going to continue drilling on another area that we know is really surprised us, which is Bégin-La-Marche, with some very high values of phosphate. We're going to be drilling there. On the beneficiation side, now that we have the agreement with Prayon, what you can see us doing is, developing a pilot plant here at the beneficiation side, so that then we can, have enough phosphate to start, developing some samples of phosphoric acid, which then can be, worked in with, iron sulfate and lithium on our own or with partners. So you'll see us develop some of those partnerships as well, bringing that process together to be able to make, our first batch of LFP cathode active material, and perhaps even a small little sample battery cell. Like, that's very, very important stuff in this whole system. So now we finally have all the pieces to be able to complete that. It takes time, but you can see that coming from us very shortly. You'll see us looking at some producers of LFP cathode active material, some people with some systems and some processes. The beauty, what we have, Andrew, is we're not committed to one LFP cathode active material manufacturing process. We can look at all of them. You can work with one person, we can work with 3, 4, 5. It doesn't really matter. We could have 3 or 4, production runs going, all with different processes, right, for different needs, and to mitigate our risk. So you're going to see us starting to work in this sector here as well.
Excellent. Well, like I said, the market's responded exceptionally well. And I mean, I'm trying to think of too many companies that list and then quickly get an MOU, especially when we are technically the mining sector. You're more than just the mining sector because it is this whole vertically integrated. But I'm trying to think of other companies that have kind of ramped up that quickly. So it's quite a feat. We're definitely gonna be watching, and as soon as you have any news, we're gonna be crashing in to call and to see if you can give us more advice and developments as they come along.
Well, Andrew, thank you for that. I mean, we're out here to build a business. We're going to build a business as quickly as humanly possible. We're going to do it in a very special way because we're focused down here. We're focused on our client. We're focused on the technology client. We know the technology client needs. We will be very laser focused on them. We're very focused on this whole vertical integration and being the solution for North America. Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, John. I'll let you get some sleep and get ready for a conference. I'm sure you'll have a great presentation and the networking and whatnot, talking to all the experts and the big players in the space. Enjoy yourself, and also I'm sure it'll be great business.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and anytime.
All right, take care, John. Thanks so much.